I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even cry. I just sat there in my car, watching my husband through the window of our Malibu beach house, the one we'd bought together 3 years ago, kissing a woman who definitely wasn't me. My name is Maya Chen, and I'm a senior partner at Whitmore and Associates, one of the top corporate law firms in Los Angeles. I've built a career on staying calm under pressure, on thinking 3 steps ahead, on never letting emotion cloud judgment. So when I saw my husband Daniel with another woman on Thanksgiving weekend, I didn't react the way most people would expect. I took screenshots, 17 of them. Then I drove home and started building my case. Let me back up. Daniel and I met 8 years ago when I was a junior associate pulling all-nighters on securities fraud cases. He was charming, ambitious, working his way up at his family's real estate development company. His sister Caroline ran the business Old Money, Old Family, the kind of people who summer in the Hamptons and winter in Aspen. They never quite approved of me. I was an immigrant, self-made, too focused on my career. But Daniel said he loved that about me. He said I was different from the country club girls he grew up with. I paid for his MBA at Stanford. I networked to get him into the right rooms. When Caroline needed capital for their new luxury condo development downtown, I co-signed for $12 million. 3 months ago, things started feeling off. Late meetings, lipstick on a collar, a new cologne, the usual signs. But I'm not the usual wife. I didn't confront him. I didn't check his phone. I did something much smarter. I called Marcus Webb, the best private investigator in Los Angeles and a former client. I also quietly reached out to Sarah Chen, the head of our firm's forensic accounting division. Because here's what I've learned in 15 years of practicing law. When someone starts lying about one thing, they're usually lying about everything. Marcus followed Daniel for 2 weeks. The affair was obvious: lunch meetings at the Peninsula, weekend trips to San Diego, late nights at a condo in Marina del Rey registered to a shell company. But it was Sarah who found the real story. Daniel and Caroline were running a massive fraud scheme through their development company. They'd been inflating property values, creating fake investors, and siphoning money into offshore accounts. The downtown project I'd co-signed for? A complete Ponzi scheme. They'd already stolen $43 million from investors, and they were planning to disappear before it all collapsed. And here's the part that made my blood run cold. Sarah found emails. Emails about a boating accident that would solve their Maya problem before she could figure things out. They were planning to kill me on our scheduled New Year's yacht trip to Cabo, make it look like I fell overboard during a party. So I made a plan. I didn't tell Daniel I knew anything. I went about my normal routine work, gym, dinner with friends. But I was documenting everything. Every transfer, every fake invoice, every shell company. I moved our joint assets, everything Daniel thought was his safety net, into an irrevocable trust that only I controlled, legally, quietly, irreversibly. I also did something else. I called the FBI. Turns out, they'd been investigating Caroline's company for 6 months. Money laundering, wire fraud, securities violations. They had pieces of the puzzle, but they needed someone on the inside to give them the complete picture. I became that person. I wore a wire to family dinners. I recorded conversations. I provided bank statements, contracts, emails, and then I planted someone in Daniel's life. Her name was Sienna Hart, 28, beautiful, ambitious. Daniel met her at his country club, or so he thought. Actually, she was an FBI informant I'd helped place there through a friend at the bureau. The affair wasn't random. I orchestrated it. Every lunch, every hotel room, every intimate conversation where Daniel bragged about his brilliant fraud scheme, all recorded, all documented, all admissible in court. When I drove to Malibu that Friday before Thanksgiving, I knew exactly what I'd find. I'd sent Daniel a text earlier saying I had to work late, that I'd see him Saturday. He'd replied that he was closing a deal in Chicago and wouldn't be back until Sunday. But his Range Rover was parked in our driveway. And Sienna's Mercedes was right next to it. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. I pulled up the Ring camera footage on my phone and watched them in our living room, drinking our wine, laughing about how clueless I was. I recorded 15 minutes of footage. Then I sent it all to my secure cloud server and drove back to LA. On Saturday, I met with the FBI. They had enough evidence to arrest both Daniel and Caroline, but they wanted to time it perfectly. There was a major investor gala on Tuesday night. Caroline's company was supposed to announce their new $100 million project. The FBI wanted to arrest them there, publicly, in front of everyone who mattered. I thought it was poetic. Sunday night, Daniel came home. He kissed me on the cheek, told me Chicago was brutal but productive, and asked what I'd done all weekend. Just worked, I said, pouring him a glass of wine. You know me. Always working. He smiled. He had no idea that every asset he thought he could access was gone. No idea that the FBI had surveillance teams watching him. No idea that his mistress was working for me. Monday morning, I went to my office and filed for divorce. I also filed a civil lawsuit against Daniel and Caroline for fraud, seeking damages of $60 million. My assistant hand-delivered both sets of papers to Daniel at his office at exactly 10 a.m. He called me 37 times in the next hour. I didn't answer. At noon, he showed up at my office. Security wouldn't let him pass the lobby. He stood there, screaming about how I was ruining everything, how he'd never hurt me, how we could work this out. I watched from my window, 17 floors up, and felt absolutely nothing. At 3 p.m., his lawyer called mine. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted to settle quietly, split assets 50-50, avoid a public mess. My response, see you in court. Tuesday arrived. The gala was at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, black tie, 500 guests. Caroline had invited me weeks ago. She wanted her dear sister-in-law there to celebrate the family's success. I'd RSVP'd yes. I wore red. A fitted Valentino gown, diamond earrings, heels that could kill. I looked like exactly what I was, a woman who had nothing to fear. Daniel was already there when I arrived, Sienna on his arm. He froze when he saw me. I smiled and walked right past him to the bar. Caroline gave her speech at 8 p.m. She stood on stage, talking about vision and legacy and the future of Los Angeles real estate. She thanked her investors for their trust. She promised unprecedented returns. The FBI walked in at 8:15. I was standing next to Agent Torres when he made the arrests. Daniel tried to run, actually run, like he was in some kind of action movie, but there were agents at every exit. They cuffed him in front of everyone. Caroline started screaming about lawyers and rights and mistakes. Agent Torres turned to me. Thank you for your cooperation, Miss Chen. We couldn't have done this without you. The room went silent. 500 people watching. Then they looked at me. You? Daniel's face went white. You did this? I'm a lawyer, I said calmly. When I discover a crime, I have an ethical obligation to report it. You and your sister stole $43 million. You planned to murder me. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Caroline lunged at me. 2 agents held her back. She was screaming that I'd destroyed the family, that I was a vindictive bitch, that she'd sue me for everything I had. You can try, I said. But you'll be doing it from prison. That's when Sienna stepped forward. She pulled out her FBI credentials and said, Sienna Hart, FBI, Daniel Westbrook, you're also under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. The look on his face was almost worth everything he'd put me through. Almost. As they led him away in handcuffs, he was crying, begging me to help him, saying he loved me, that we could fix this. I turned to Agent Torres. I need to make a statement for the record. Of course. I looked directly at Daniel. I need you to understand something. I didn't do this because I'm angry. I didn't do this for revenge. I did this because you broke the law. You stole from innocent people, and you planned to kill me. Justice isn't about emotion. It's about evidence. And I had plenty. They took him away. The gala dissolved into chaos. Investors were panicking, calling their lawyers, demanding answers. I stayed for another hour, speaking with the FBI, providing additional documentation, ensuring every detail was airtight. When I finally left, it was almost midnight. I stood outside the hotel, breathing in the cool November air, and checked my phone. 89 missed calls from Daniel's number. 63 texts, most of them incoherent begging. I blocked the number and went home. The next 3 months were a blur of legal proceedings. The FBI's case was airtight, I'd made sure of that. Daniel and Caroline both tried to flip on each other, each claiming the other was the mastermind. It didn't matter. The evidence showed they were equal partners in the scheme. Daniel's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal. 5 years in exchange for testimony against Caroline and returning the stolen funds. The prosecutor called me to ask my opinion. No deal, I said. They plan to murder me. They stole from dozens of families. 5 years isn't justice. The trial lasted 6 weeks. I testified for 3 days straight, walking the jury through every document, every transaction, every conversation I'd recorded. Daniel's lawyer tried to paint me as a vengeful ex-wife manipulating the system. It didn't work. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Caroline got 20 years in federal prison. Her company was dissolved, her assets seized. The Westbrook family name, generations of old money prestige, was destroyed overnight. Her parents had to sell their estate in Connecticut to cover legal fees. Daniel got 15 years, plus a deportation order. Turns out he'd lied on his citizenship application. 20 years ago, he was actually Canadian, and his fraud conviction made him deportable. After he serves his sentence, he'll be sent back to Toronto and banned from ever entering the United States again. The civil lawsuit took longer, but I won. $60 million in damages, plus legal fees. Most of it will go to the defrauded investors, but there's enough left over for me to do something meaningful with it. I started a foundation. It's called the Phoenix Initiative, and it helps immigrant women escape financially abusive relationships. We provide legal services, financial planning, emergency funds, and career counseling. In the first 6 months, we've helped 43 women leave dangerous situations and rebuild their lives. Sienna? She left the FBI and now works for my foundation as our chief investigator. Turns out she's brilliant at finding hidden assets and tracking down abusers who think they can hide money offshore. Last week, I got a letter from Daniel. He's in a federal prison in Texas, sharing a cell with a guy who ran a cryptocurrency scam. He wrote that he was sorry, that he never meant to hurt me, that he still loves me. I burned the letter. I didn't read past the first paragraph. My mentor at the firm, the woman who taught me everything about being a lawyer, asked me over coffee how I stayed so calm through all of it. How I didn't break down, didn't rage, didn't fall apart. I told her the truth. Because I'm a lawyer. I don't get mad. I get evidence. And evidence doesn't lie, doesn't cheat, and never lets you down. It just shows people exactly who they are. She smiled. What's next for you? There's a case I've been looking at. A tech CEO who's been embezzling from his employees' pension fund. His wife suspects, but she doesn't have proof. I think I can help her get it. You're taking on more cases like this? Someone has to, I said. There are too many people out there who think they can abuse, steal, and manipulate without consequences. I'm going to make sure they're wrong. I drove home that evening, past the Malibu beach house. I'd sold it, of course, couldn't stand to keep it, and thought about the last 8 years. The marriage, the betrayal, the investigation, the trial, all of it. And I realized something. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. I'm not even sad. I'm free. Free from a man who never deserved me. Free from a family that never respected me. Free from the weight of trying to prove myself to people who were never going to accept me anyway. I built my career from nothing. I came to this country with my parents when I was 10, speaking barely any English, living in a tiny apartment in San Gabriel. I worked my way through college, through law school, through brutal years as a junior associate. I earned every single thing I have. And now I use that power to help other women do the same. The woman I was before, the one who paid for her husband's MBA, who co-signed for his sister's fraud scheme, who tried so hard to be accepted by people who looked down on her, she's gone. In her place is someone stronger, smarter, and completely unburdened by the need to be liked. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah in forensic accounting. New case file for you. Hedge fund manager. Suspected of embezzling from nonprofit. Wife has documentation. Interested? I smiled and typed back. Send me everything. Because this is what I do now. I don't just practice law. I weaponize it. For every woman who's been lied to, stolen from, manipulated, or abused by someone who thought they could get away with it, I am evidence. I am justice. I am the reckoning they never saw coming. And I'm just getting started.